Well, my name is Salah Wilson, and I was born in Trinidad. Trinidad is the birthplace of the Steelpan. My first introduction to Steelpan would be probably at around age 6. I recall a desire to go to my grandma's home because there was a windowsill and a wooden windowsill, and I would be able to bang on it while the steel band was practicing in the background. This would have been sometime around 1957, 58. I was about six years old. But that steel band was started by my uncle and some of his friends. And, as a researcher, I found that very interesting because they were just about 17, 18 years, young kids. But my grandma allowed them to go into the backyard to practice. This was at the time when steel band was not what it is today.
Okay.
It was really looked down upon in a very bad way.
Really?
And a lot of people were not allowed to go near it. I was very fortunate because it was in my grandma's backyard. So I grew up with that, knowing that that's part of our, stuff. So this same band called Flamingos, I grew up in this little village, and it became part of my main everything, and all my cousins, my brothers, my relatives. At a certain time, maybe there was about maybe 15, 16 of us in the group at one point.
Nice.
So it was like a family band. So this is how we grew up. But to move on, around 1973, I got married and I migrated to Canada with my wife and my steel pans. We settled in Montreal. Yeah, we settled in Montreal. And for the first decade, I sort of traveled across Canada. And steel pan was my principal thing I wanted to do. There was no precedence as to who to follow, so I had to find my own way. So I spent a few months in Vancouver, got some more equipment together. I went out there to do some more stuff with relatives who were in our former band back home in Flamingos. And I spent some time there. It didn't work out. Steelpan, young guys. I went up to Edmonton where I had relatives thinking it would be better. And they were not so supportive of me. My same uncle who started the band and my elder brother who I always looked up to. But when I got together with them, said, are you going to leave Trinidad to come up to Canada to play pan? Is that what you're going to do? So it was very, and coming from a state where it was, a very derogative thing to be a pan man,
Yep.
So that was kind of tough. But I moved on and I returned back to Montreal and settled. And that has began a whole pursuit of steel pan development. Just to mention a few things. So after the first decade, in 1984 now, I took a bold move of taking the steel pan to the streets and the subway to begin what would be actually the first steel pan busking in all of Canada. Okay. So this happened in 1984. So I took to the streets, and very interesting, because people had heard the steel pan before, way back in 1967 at the Expo 67 fair, when 3 steel bands from Trinidad became very popular. But since that time, it's been a decline. So me taking the pan out on the streets and the subway of Montreal was very exhilarating. I got a lot of people who came up to me. I met a lot of interesting people on the streets, including Taj Mahal. He was playing with Robert Greenidge at that time, and he invited me to come to his show at the Rising Sun in Montreal. And so a lot of stuff kept happening there. But this was 1984. A couple of years after that, I decided, of being 2 or 3 years in the subway, I decided to go back to school. So I went to McGill Conservatory and I did my secondary 3, 4, and 5. And then I decided, well, let me see what else I can do with the steel pan. So here I'm in Montreal, and I decided to visit the Caribbean communities, 86, 87. And I established in 2 communities, 2 steel pan programs. So this was the start. At that same time, I have 5, 6 kids, so I started to do my own steel band group. And we became a fixture for decades, Salah and family, as a steel band group in Montreal. So this happened. The next step was now to create outlets. So here I have a couple groups in the communities, my own family group. So we decided to create some outlets. So in 1990, we created a Summer Steel Pan Festival and also a Winter Steel Pan Festival. So things are happening in Montreal again.
That's awesome.
Finally, I decided in 1991 now to go and visit the public schools. So I went into the public school through another friend of mine, and we were able to get the steel pan started in the public schools in Montreal in 1991. That being done, I decided, you know, since I'm now teaching in the public schools, I should get myself more educated. So I called up McGill University and asked them, hey, I want to do my first degree on with my Steelpans. No way, we're not interested. We're not having that here. I called up Concordia. Concordia said, come on in. So I went, I did an audition, and those guys, they accepted me. I spent 3 years there doing my first degree. So I graduated in 95 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in jazz specialization, using my pans as the principal instrument. It's the first time, again, someone is doing this in Montreal, in Canada, taking a steel to a university level. So that I did. And here now we have steel pans in the schools and in the community. So a lot of stuff is happening. I'm just graduating with a lot of jazz stuff, produced an album with my family. I applied to the Montreal International Jazz Festival, got a 5-day gig in 97 there, and it turned out to be pretty good. We were on the best bets and, you know, good reviews for the steel pan at that time. Apart from that, we did many other stuff in around Montreal. One of the main things was that we did a major baseball game, Montreal Expos against Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
Of course. But we were able to play the Canadian anthem and the American anthem before the game, and we were able to play a good half an hour during the halftime show. So that was pretty good for us. It gave us a big boost in promotions, and a lot of more gigs and all stuff came from that. During that time in 1994, our group, we came into Toronto, which would be an annual thing from then on. So from 1994 until today, we've been bringing a group from Montreal to Toronto to participate in the Caribbean Carnival, the Caribana events, the Steelpan events of that, the Panorama competition. So we've been doing, has been very successful over the years, but it's something that we do annually. Guess what? This year, we're not doing it, COVID-19. It's the first time in 1994, we're not able to take from Montreal to participate in the events in Toronto. But that's fine, but we're moving on. So apart from that, we did quite a bit more stuff, and 2000. Nope.
Sorry.
No
I've
problem.
got a 12-pound dog. Whenever the doorbell rings, he turns into a 100-pound guard dog.
That's good. Anyways, what else we did? We had this winter festival and summer festival happening in Montreal, quite a few activities. We also set up a Montreal International Steelpan Festival in 2000. And this we were able to invite groups from different parts of the world to come into our Montreal International. The idea was to model it like the Montreal International Jazz Festival.
Okay.
Except what we were going to do with this is still have our annual Panorama competition in it, apart from bringing in a lot of solo individuals and so on. So this was going on pretty good until 2012. I decided to get back into school. So here I'm leaving Montreal now, and I'm coming to Toronto to begin my master's and PhD. So since 2012, I've been here at York University, now about to finish completion with just waiting again. We were supposed to do it in April, but COVID-19, so I'm now going to wait on a date from my advisors to do my dissertation. I guess it's going to be online also. So I'm getting a good practice with you now with this, so that's part of it. So awesome. Here we are all the way, and that's basically what I've been doing with my life in Canada, being just a promoter and advocate for Steelpan development, and that's all. That's my gig. So I've said to myself, I don't really consider myself a real musician. I'm a Steelpan player. I don't play any other instruments. I beat around on the drums, but I never try to get. Like I said to myself, I can't even play my Steelpans yet. So let me just try to get this together before I could move on to another instrument.
That is so cool. What a great story. Thank you so much. And all because you heard the pans when you were 6. That is a great story. Thank you. So I'm curious to know, why did you decide to pursue support from the Helen Carswell Chair in Community Engaged Research in the Arts and in partnership with the Regent Park School of Music?
Well, I had met with the director of Regent Park, Richard Marsalis, and he expressed his concerns on his programs and the state of development. And there was a sentiment expressed, which was, has the Steelpan plateaued? So that in itself would be enough for me to start a conversation with him.
Exactly.
But as a graduate student, I found a lot of stuff in my email coming from a lot of professors. And one of them was that dealt with Caswell. So at the same time, I said, oh, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to get involved where I can do my stuff, Steelpan development. So I did a proposal and I got into to this type of involvement with Caswell and RPSM.
Nice, nice. So what was the research about? What were you seeking to do with Regent Park?
Well, first of all the research that I'm based on is really Steelpan development, different forms of it. So this research was based mostly on the information that he was presenting, which was the state of his Steelpan programs, which showed a lot of stagnation, low stimulus, low recruitment. And so he had two programs at Jane and Finch and Regent Park. And then there was another program at another school, Monsignor Fraser, but it had ceased. There was some reason that it could not continue. So he was looking at all these were some of the problems. And another thing is that how can he get to a wider outreach for his programs? So these are the three things I said, well, this is something that some research can give some answers about. So that's basically what the research was all about.
Excellent. And I know you've been engaged with Richard and his team for a while now. What have you found through your research to date?
Okay, so what happened is that I became a participant observant. I visited the schools with the programs, assisted in the practical teaching of some of the programs. I also I analyzed the strengths and the weaknesses of the program and raised questions about repertoire. I found that some cases it was not adequate for the kids. You got to give the kids what they're used to, especially in this time. At the same time, some of the stuff that they were doing was a bit too advanced for some of the kids and some of the pans, and that's another problem where I saw then that there has never been a really teaching technique, a program for teachers, Steelpan teachers. Right. So I figured, maybe something like this is worth looking into, setting up a teachers training program. Because, for instance, for every instrument, there are techniques. There's technique to play a saxophone, technique to play a piano. Of course, there are techniques for Steelpan too. So this, I think, is something that should come to the top as a part of the whole research program. So that said and done, I visited the two schools and I offered those suggestions. At the school where there was no program, I found out why, and you can't do the same thing all the time and expect to get a different result. That's right. So I suggested to them, maybe you should look at a different type of program, a program that instead of just having kids, why not, because this is something we did in Montreal, why not have a sort of intergenerational program where you can invite adults and kids to participate? We did this in Montreal, and what happened, we found that it was a lot of family bonding. Mothers would come with their daughters or their sons and would be able to bond, husband and wives, grandmother and kids. So this is some of the things I thought maybe this would be a good idea to introduce. So we introduced this, and I think it was working very fine. And so that was part of it. So then the other part about outreach, I said to him, listen, we're in Toronto, it's a very cosmopolitan country, lots of different cultures. The Steelpan culture is here in a very big way. You are doing Steelpan. You need to get involved with that wider community where so many more things can happen. So this was a great suggestion to get involved with the Caribbean Steelpan community. So this is what I found out from the research, and now was how to go to apply things to that.
So to follow up from that, through your time engaging with Regent Park, had you noticed an increase in the growth and interest in Steelpan? Like maybe there's a young Salah Wilson out there who's just kind of taken to it, and it's like, oh, this is so awesome.
Yeah, well, what happened is that we found then that from the research, there was a big stimulus started to happen because I invited them to change the repertoire, and I produced a lot of other music scores too that would do that. But the emphasis I wanted to get on with them was that the teachers training program offers a few things. One of them is the technique of pan playing, which no one has ever decided to teach someone how to play. We just learn how to read music and so on, but there's also a technique. So that's one. Another thing is Steelpan has been in existence for over 80 years. And more than 80% of the time, it has always been by rote learning. not note learning, just rote learning. I learned to
Okay.
play by rote. So I think there's something there of combining note learning and rote learning, especially with steel pans. It's been practical, and it's a very practical thing, and it works. And I've been applying this, and I'm actually working on a full documentation of note and rote learning. So I hope to come up with a full, complete document on that topic. But I think this is very important, and it saves time. And once you get something like that happening, especially for newcomers, and today's world where they want instant gratification, you want to be able to go into a group, and at the end of that first session, you can play a song. You can actually do this with steel pans by rote learning. So I think it's important to combine both of them together, rote learning and note.
Thank you.
Of course, there's always pedagogy and relative to different ages and the levels of students. And of course, again, I'm pushing that idea of the getting involved. There's a steel pan competition, and suggesting to RPSM that they can prepare. It takes a good year to prepare a group that can participate as a part-time, as a guest artist.
Okay.
In this, so something like that is in the mix.
Sounds awesome.
Stimulus and different things, especially with the intergenerational program. We've had like a grandmother, her daughter, and her grandson. So like 3 generations happening at one time, and I found this to be very interesting, and there's a lot of room for growth with it. So this has been very exceptionally good. And the thing is that it just got stopped because, again, of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So everything was take a backseat to all of that.
Hopefully just for a little while, though. That sounds like. Anything else you wanted to add around how people could use it? Because I mean, just that applied component that folks go in and in one lesson, because that builds a lot of confidence as well.
That's a lot of confidence, and you can do this with Steelpan, but through rote learning. Okay. And that's how it has been for more than 80 years now in Trinidad. Now there's a great impetus for academia, as a lot of people now getting into, and that's normal. So I think there's a good reason to combine both of them and come up with some stuff. So that's part of my quest at the moment.
All right. Well, move on to number 6. Salah, what are your reflections in working in partnership with a community to conduct your research?
Well, it's been a very interesting development. For one thing, the community brings to the table a coordinated structure to programs, and they provide the ways and means to make programs happen. So that's the community part. From my part, I'm coming from academia, obviously, but I'm also bringing a cultural perspective of, but not just the nature of the instrument being cultural, but I'm also an active member in the larger Caribbean Steelpan community. Like I said, I've been bringing a Steelpan from Montreal since 1994 annually. And we've been causing some problems with people in Toronto with their groups by winning their competition. And they refer to us as a French band. Well, we're not a French band, but this is all part of the talk and the pan talk and all that stuff. It's all good. So yeah, and with that, I'm bringing an experience of over 50 years of continual Steelpan music. So we're bringing something to the table. So working with the RPSM or any other community, it's good because there's mutual benefits. For me, I'm promoting Steelpan development wherever and however. And the RPSM, they want to get this Steelpan thing happening, but I think there's a good thing then that we can do something and make it better.
Completely.
And everyone goes with it.
And that's a great connection to my next question is, if you look at it from Richard's standpoint or from Regent Park School of Music, what do you anticipate to be the impact for them? And what is your hope for change?
Well, again, there's a bunch of stuff that can happen now that things have started. For instance, we can expand on the intergenerational community program, which can attract all types of people from various backgrounds. This has already begun. So definitely there's room for expansion in that. And we can also now introduce, what I would like to see happen is to introduce different genres of music. For instance, chamber music. I would like to go into a mall and then you have a steel band performing Mozart, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, just like how you would get a string ensemble or wind ensemble. So that's an option. Then you can go and do a jazz program, just pure jazz, where everyone in the group is doing the improvising and all of that stuff. That should be very interesting. So these are options. Of course, gospel and pop and vocal with Steelpans, these are options that can bring into play and give more impetus for Steelpan development and more interest, period. So these are some of the things. Of course, what can benefit them is an increased repertoire of all these different types of music with the appropriate scores to go for it. So that would be a plus for them. I would advise them to introduce workshops for this same Steelpan teaching training program. If you introduce workshops for this, you can get certain things done, the same concept of technique and the concept of rote and note learning. So that's a plus for them. And again, I'm going to push the concept of getting RPSM to get a Steelpan group together and prepare so that they can participate in the Caribbean events, nice. The Caribbean events. It takes a while, but this is a plus for RPSM. If they were to get in there and get into this program, they do not only teach Steelpans, so they have an opportunity to advertise all of their other programs to a wide community that is already there, but they can get their foot in by using the Steelpan program to get into that whole community. So these are some of the things I would emphasize on why this research is important for them.
Nice. Well, thank you. So my final question is more for you. If there's anything else you'd like to share, if there was something you thought I was going to ask you, but I didn't, if there's something you mentioned that you want to elaborate on, do you have any final reflections or things you'd like to share?
A few things. For one thing, the programs would reach a wider community if RPSM would make these new inroads. This type of outreach, it's good for their marketing and promotional, all great benefits to yield from that, getting involved with a wider community. And let me put it this way. The Steelpan is on a journey, with or without us. Our participation or involvement, it's going to go, whether we get ourselves involved. But we as active participants and involved people can definitely make a substantial change if we work together, and there will be a greater chance for Steelpan improvement. So I would like to see some things like this happen, and I'm very, I consider myself fortunate to get to this point with Steelpans, and where I now feel I can offer more as I'm about to graduate with this. And working with RPSM is a good chance that some more things can develop from this whole adventure with them.
Awesome. I can't thank you enough for this. This has been such a treat. We've had a chance to meet on a few occasions, but the chance to chat in a bit of detail and really learn about your history and passion for the Steelpans, your passion is infectious. So thank you for your time, and certainly on behalf of you and I, thanks to the support of the Helen Carswell Chair. Continued success, and when things get back to normal, I look forward to the opportunity to be able to hear you teach and perhaps perform down at Caravana. But wishing you good health, be well, and when you have an opportunity to defend your dissertation, I'm sure it's going to be a fabulous experience. Thank you so much, Salah.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Michael. Again, I just say that Steelpan development is an ongoing process that needs the necessary advocacy to push for growth that will benefit all. So I'm stuck with this, and it's a good place to be stuck. So I have no problems and no complaints.
I think so. It sounds like you were in a fabulous spot. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you.